the how good of a person is in a lot of ways. You know,
well,
like
that's what you're coming to, that's what you started with.
right.
But I think that it also is a huge issue with artists of all ages.
That's right.
To, you know, just to see that kind of myth breaking in one's own life, you know, and just how one goes about sustaining what is real.
Right, that's exactly right, and that's what I'm interested in. That's why I did this, is that there's a lot of, Jen Dalton says that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors for artists. But to answer your question, how do I eliminate those people? First of all, my husband said, you know, 10% of these people that you ask are probably not going to be your friends anymore, and he was exactly right. There was 4 people, and that's very strange. That he was exactly right. He would not think it strange that he was right, but anyway. But I would say that how did I eliminate them? I just said, well, I can't put you in the book. No, I just basically. I didn't do any interviewing. I asked people I just told them over the phone what I wanted to have done. But most of these people know me, and they know me well enough that I am not can I cuss here? Can I cuss, or is anybody going to be offended? I am so not a bullshitter. I'm straight to the point. I live in reality. My work is my truth. So I don't have time for things that are not truthful or these mythologies that we've been living with. Was very irritated when in my preface I said that when I graduated from Yale, with all of this debt, and I went to New York with my friends, and I had no goals, I had nothing. You know, I didn't even know I didn't even think about teaching, I didn't do any of that. You know, I just wanted to go to graduate school because I wanted to learn more. And I loved it there. It was one of the best experiences of my life. When I got out of school, 3 months after I got out of school, I called one of my professors at home. And I was crying because I had creditors calling me, because that was before consumer protection for people who have a lot of debt. And so you get calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. I had roommates. I was embarrassed. I was devastated. So I called him. I said, how do I do this? No one told me. How do I do this? How do I make a living? He said, your work will carry you. Okay, so there's truth to that you have to do the best work you can. That is your asset. But it didn't prevent all these creditors calling me or struggle with life when I was there at an $18,000 a year salary with limited health insurance. And there were times where I had $5 for a week, and then I would walk back and forth to my job and eat macaroni and cheese. And though, thank God I went through all of that, because I know where that is, and so I'll feel comfortable with it if I ever get down there again. So I think that when he told me that, I got very, very angry because no one was telling me the truth of what it was. So that was a big reason why I wrote this book too, is I wanted other artists to share with other artists and say, hey, not only is this the way I make a living, but hey, maybe I just saw this grant the other day that you might be interested in. How about that? And then the other person listening say, well, I saw a grant that you might be interested in. Man, we can make a big world if we shared a lot more, and if we did a lot more ourselves.
I understand that so well and intimately. This exhibition is the work of a group of artists that meet every week, and they have breakfast together.
That's so cool.
And this group was actually started by Elmer Bischoff and Earl Brown and Sidney Gordon when they were all teaching at Cal, and the group has continued over the years. And it's really wonderful. It's a very supportive group in the sense that everyone's there for each other. They show up at each other's openings. And at one point, I became aware of a call that had gone out for sculpture in a new hospital building, new hospital at Stanford. And I was very upset when I heard that one member had applied for this and was, and had not brought this up in the group. I mean, I'm not a sculptor. I was concerned, and I brought this up in the group, that in fact, I really expected that everybody, if they knew of something, would share that that's what they're there for. You know, that's really important. That's what we're here for each other. Otherwise, we could just stay in our studios at home and be isolated and lonely and miserable, and there wouldn't be much difference, you know? And that's that's a shift in thinking for, you know, I think it's just, and you would think that's natural, but it just wasn't there.
But I think that sometimes as artists we feel like, well, if I do that to somebody, I'm never going to get it. And I think that sometimes, the universe is not, it has a different plan for everybody. Like, I've applied for the Guggenheim 8 times, and, I know people have applied 15 times and still haven't gotten it. But every time I would get that, I never call, there's no such thing as a rejection, first of all. I think rejection is if you get dumped by your girlfriend or boyfriend. I think it's a difference of opinion. It's so random, you know, there's just a difference of opinion at that moment. But I cry and act like an idiot, and then I go back and I apply for things. But there are moments where I thought, well, that wasn't bad, you know, that's ridiculous. Maybe it's not my destiny. I will tell you though, perseverance pays off. I was just sharing this, I'm really proud of this, I hope you don't mind, but there's a thing called the New York Foundation for the Arts Grants. Don't they have like grants here in California for artists who?
They
did. They don't.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks. Well, New York NIFA is only for New York residents. And last year, 2,900 people applied for a NIFA grant. There are different categories. That gives you an idea of how many people are applying. I applied for NIFA grant 15 times over 22 years, and I just got it.
Yay.
So that was huge for me, and I think that I kept going. Even some of my assistants in my studio got it before me, which still make my teeth hurt. So, of course, it's a natural way of being, but I have learned to resist that, because being a good person that has nothing to do with them, that has nothing to do with me, and I have to have faith in my practice, and it makes me work harder to go forward. And that NIFA grant was $7,000 in 3 minutes, in 3 checks, it was gone. And so, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was voted by my peers. Also there was somebody I knew who knew my work, who I've known for many, many years, another artist who was on the panel. Invest in your community. Invest in your community. And of course I thanked her. I must have written her 3 letters. Every time I see her, I hug her and say, I'm deeply grateful, because I am. I'm so grateful to her. I might just write her another letter here from California and tell her. But I'll always keep her in mind. And do you think that I'm curating a show this summer? Do you think that I'm going to keep her in my mind and put her in that show? You better believe it. Not because she can give me something else, but because she was so generous. Forever in debt. Other questions? Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
So I'm going to say that I started out very much with your perspective 40 years ago, and can't sustain doing what you're saying and keep my own practice going. I can't shift from the external to the internal, and I'm such an introvert now.
Yeah.
And have to just keep doing my own stuff and can't do what you're saying. I cannot shift the way you're talking about, because I can't do them both.
Right.
So I just would like to know if you hear this.
Everybody's different. You know, I'm actually a very private person, but obviously I love people and I engage with people. I do think to be a practicing artist, getting out in the world, I don't know what your goals are, where the context is for your work, or how you see where your work is in the world. So everybody's different. But there is a certain amount of engagement that you have to do. But you could just do with whatever's within your practice, whatever is within your comfortability. You don't have to know an entire community. But as I was mentioning to Laura, right, you can hide behind social media, you can follow people, you can make one click, you don't have to say hello, but for the most part, it's about personal engagement. It doesn't mean that you have to do it to the degree that I do or anybody else does. some of these people in this book are very, very private and have their own very quiet and modest lives. So for example, Julie Blackman, who I've got to read from her essay before we end. It's a great, I love it. I love her. She has 3 children. She has a husband who's a professor. She lives in Springfield, Missouri. She lives in like a 3-block radius of her whole family. And she stayed there even though she has a gallery in New York. And she also, what is that? Oh, she has a gallery in New York, and then she also had work on Real Simple magazine and the cover of Time. Perceptually, it seems like she has a driver and a yacht and everything else. You go to her house, it's the most beautiful, modest house for 3 children. She lives like everybody else. She doesn't get out there at all. She lives to herself. She lives with her family, and that's it. Now, what I would suggest is if you wanted to read her essay and write her and ask her how she does that, I think a big part of it is that she does have to go out to a degree, but she measures it and she has her priorities. But it's based on your personality, but you need to find a way of doing it. And based on where you want to be, you can do other things.